Hello, hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to have Ana Quintas with us today. But before I dive in and I do the presentation of Ana, let me maybe remind some formats about how we drive this webinar. We have a short introduction part, then we move into the question and answer session. And please feel free to jot down your questions. And if we cannot answer them all, we'll make sure that at the end of the webinar, we'll post them in the LinkedIn session. Now, Hans-Peter and I, we are very keen in how can we lead the change with the transformation, and how can we make circularity and sustainability happen? So what we've done in the past, we went through, the role, the importance of the role of the CEO, why sustainability is not as high maybe, or seems not to be as high in the agenda of senior executives. Then we were looking at reinventing the end-to-end process to allow circularity. And last time, we had the pleasure also to have Marco Eikelenboom, the CEO of SAPI Europe, with us, who basically nailed it with two things. The first one was sustainability is the license to operate today. And the second one is that the employee engagement, but also the interest of applicants to join the company, has never been that high, because they're all drawn to participate to this transformation, to this change. So today, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Ana Quintas, who is our guest today. And Ana, you have been working for the private industry, for the public sector. You are an environmental engineer. And what I love with you, and this is where Hans-Peter and we met you, is that you have this passion to advance circularity, cradle to cradle, especially in the built environment, which is your home, if I may say so. And where you today work for the Institute of Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation, and help the build industry, the producers, as well as the whole stakeholder community around the build industry, to move into this cradle to cradle product innovation and help them to get certified. Now, what I appreciate really much with you, is that when we met, because you are a program leader at the Cambridge Judge Business School, where Hans-Peter and we met you, as said before, you absolutely astonished me, because you have this passion on one side, and on the other side, you have this calm efficiency and way of moving things forward. So without further ado, I think, Hans-Peter, you shall dive now with Ana in the question and answer session.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. And also from my side, welcome, Ana, and thanks for joining us today. So it's really interesting to have you. Ana, you as an experienced professional in sustainability and the circular economy, could you share with all of us a few of your pivotal moments in your career that really shaped your approach towards sustainability and sustainable development in the built environment?
Well, first of all, thanks very much, Catherine and Hans-Peter, for this kind invite and so nice words. I mean, it's also nice to see how important it's to connect and network people, especially if you're talking about sustainability and built environment. And you two are a good example of two students that took this Cambridge University executive program that together kind of like spin off what you think it might lead to these changes. So thank you very much, and really nice to see that happen. So back to your question. So I started a few years ago as a very young environmental engineer, hired to support construction sites and design teams when the concerns were around environmental protection and how companies, and mainly construction companies, should look into some aspects to avoid fines. We are talking about 17 years ago, where design did not include any of the sustainability aspects. Environmental studies were just done to the major projects. And environmental professionals like me, they were working construction. They were just a few, and normally linked with the quality and health and safety team. So we were almost perceived as environmentalists and not always taken that serious. I start notice some changes when we stop talking about environmental protection and start talking about sustainable development. And this sustainable development integrates also the social and economic perspectives. And when the need to transform our economy to be more circular, mainly focused by the time on efficiency of resources, but also to keep this value as much as possible. Of course, regulations, initiatives, and funds that were launched by the European Commission over the last 10 years, they helped to kind of like set up this scene. So it's quite an important moment. And also we have in 2015 the Paris Agreement that was followed by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And I think these were kind of moments where we start seeing these shifts, these changes. And then more recently we have like the COVID pandemic that just helped the society to understand a bit more what is important and where we should, and how fragile we are. So I think for me this kind of like the main times that change or produce this transformation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of interesting, and this was also why I was so keen that you participate, because the build industry is a very traditional one, you know, building sustainable and circular structures posits its own unique challenges, and you know, and I highlight that because it's pretty easy for people moving in a technology environment to say, well, just move over to a platform, leave the linear business model behind you and go to a platform model. You will see you're going to have a lot of advantages. I mean, definitely. But how do you move a very asset-heavy industry, often especially the producers, as well as a very traditional environment, into a circular environment or economy? Can you share some obstacles you've encountered and how you've managed to navigate together with your clients around them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you already mentioned a few key aspects from the built environment industry, the construction industry. So it's very traditional, business as usual industry. We see a significant number of SMEs, so that means that some companies, they struggle in terms of capacity, and the profile is also a lot of family-owned companies, and this makes this industry as traditional as you just mentioned, but also they are quite resistant to changes, and again, very usual to this business as usual. I mean, if we think about just the building stock, right? So we see countries in Europe, but also in other regions, that we use the buildings that have been built 100 years ago, and they are still working and they are still operating. which proves that they have been doing this properly. So it's also very difficult to challenge the industry and ask them, can we do better than we have been doing when what we have been doing has been proved to be success? So I just wanted to bring some numbers here, because I think it's quite important to give some context in terms of the industry. I mean, we see construction still growing, still expanding. I mean, the last numbers I saw means that we are still building a new city of Paris every day around the globe. And then, of course, if you talk about material use and waste production, construction industry still is the top on kind of like of these productions. And more recently, if we speak about carbon emissions, 40% of global emissions, they come from buildings and construction. So it's definitely like an industry where we see this resistance to change. However, the challenge of bringing sustainability and to bring circularity and efficiency has been to prove that this is possible while they are still profitable. So this has been only possible through a lot of capacity building, training, awareness, a huge exercise of collaboration and engagement. So if I count the number of hours that I spend speaking, training with companies, that reflects mainly what needs to be done. And in some cases, we have not been succeed, but there's also like this massive learning exercise that can be done. So I can see the shift, but definitely there's still an ongoing work that all of us needs to be done. Yes. And when I mean all of us, it's not only the professionals working in the industry, but the users, the consumers, etc.
Yeah. And especially as next week, we are going to hit the overshoot of the Earth. So right now, I mean, if we look the numbers from 1970 up to now, we are now using the resources of 1.7 planets. So Earth. Yeah. So it's not working. I mean, we know that it is not working. And by the way, I mean, me coming from the heritage, the built heritage background, because of family members working there, it is absolutely, I can only stress it, or not stress it enough, that when you do restoration in buildings, you have the ability to combine innovation with restituting the buildings and keeping them. So I know that it is, I can only underline what you just said, Anna, it is possible. It is about a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just I think building on what you said, Anna, so I say traditional sector, traditional environment. Now in your, and I love in your current role, you are at the Cradle to Cradle Product Innovation Institute. And the good thing is that, yes, there is movement going on, and especially with Cradle to Cradle products, I would be interested if you take this traditional or this sector you just said, 40% footprint. How would you, or can you give us some insights on what a Cradle to Cradle product has on the built environment?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, one of the reasons why I started working for the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute was because I felt across my career that manufacturers of materials and products were one of the key stakeholders that I haven't engaged that much. So that was one of the reasons why I joined the Institute, and has been really nice 2 years of learning from all these materials and products manufacturers. So at the moment, I work with over 300 material and products manufacturers across the EMEA region, but mainly in Europe. And Europe, I'm talking about German, Dutch, Belgium, Spanish, and Danish manufacturers that they have been leading this agenda of sustainable and circular products. This represents at the moment over 50,000 products variations in the market, what means that these companies, they have been redesigning and rethinking their products, but also their manufacturing processes to respond to this demand to be more sustainable, more circular, but without forgetting this responsible made in all the social aspects. So what needs to be done, and what I see is happening, is that this needs to become the norm and not the special cases. And then we have the traditional old kind of fashion manufacturers becoming the norm. This is just one idea. What I also experience by working with these manufacturers is that it has been like a journey for them. They are used to kind of the industry to see their products, to see their materials as they are, but not considering too more factors like the carbon or recycled content or their impact on soil and water stewardship and so on. And this holistic way that the Cradle to Cradle certification brings to the table that many manufacturers are engaging as well. And then, of course, we also challenge the supply chains. And in some cases, we go through the entire value chain. And we are seeing like manufacturers thinking that this is really the right approach, because they are much more aware and much more kind of conscious of what's going on, not only when they assemble their products or on the final manufacturer stage, but across the entire value chain. And I think that's quite important. And eventually, when we operate at the product level, this will have a massive impact at the building infrastructures and even cities and urban spaces level.
So have you seen some changes in attitudes and practices? Because you touched slightly upon that, but what do you see? I mean, once they go through the certification process, what are the changes you noticed with your clients?
I mean, it's interesting because the changes they depend a lot from the region and even the country where these companies are operating. So I mainly heard from manufacturers that they are worried about legacy, about accountability for their products, and then of course in terms of compliance with existing regulations, but also very important being future-proof for what might come of them. And some of these manufacturers, they want to put in the market the best product, and they understood already that means in all the possible aspects, not only in terms of performance, but in terms of circularity, in terms of sustainability, in terms of social aspects. So in some cases, sustainability became part of the risk management, part of the decision process when they are designing new products. Unfortunately, we still see a lot of companies just doing it to position themselves better in terms of competition, but also in terms of kind of like just compliance with regulations. I mean, I also see that depending again on the country, you see like green public procurement driving some of these changes. While in other cases, it's the private procurement, like asset owners and developers trying to drive these changes in every project they do. But also like regulation and legislation, mainly in Europe, has been really driving these changes. And just one last remark in terms of research and innovation that I also see in some of these companies. I mean, there are some manufacturers putting really the time and the resources to kind of start answering some questions like, how can I disassemble my products or my building? How can I repair? How can I integrate higher recycled content? there is any other business model that we can take and apply. So we have seen, and I have experienced that recently over this last 2 years working with manufacturers, mainly in Europe, I would say.
Can you maybe explain for the ones who are not so familiar with the cradle to cradle model, what it entails?
Yeah, sure. The Cradle to Cradle Certified products program, it's rooted on the cradle to cradle design principles that basically focus in two main areas. That is design out of waste, increase the amount of renewable energy, and then keep biodiversity or celebrate biodiversity. So basically we have two different approaches, one from the technical cycle and another one from the biological cycle, where we should design products with the concept that everything should be cycled several times. And again, it can be from the technical aspect as well as the biological aspect. It's more or less the concept that everything is an agreed ingredient that can be added again to a recipe. So that's where the cradle to cradle design principles, they focus. The certification itself, it focuses more on the holistic approach, that we look at the material health of the products, we look at the product circularity, and these two main categories, they are mainly focused on the product development per se. And then finally, we look as well as the clean air and climate mitigation. We look at soil and water stewardship and social fairness. And this is about the organization, it's about the factories, it's about where they produce the products per se. And again, you need to achieve the minimum required in all of the 5 different categories. And only with that you can claim, let's say, that you have a cradle to cradle certified product. That means that your products are more sustainable, circular, and responsible made.
I have a question on the continuum between being degenerative, but you still being compliant with the legislation, going to net zero, and then regenerative. In the ideal world, where do you see on the continuum the built environment industry? Do you think that they can become really regenerative?
It's a tricky question. I mean, I would say there's lots of opportunities to do it. I don't believe on the 100% regenerative. I mean, if we use just the wood timber example, I mean, if from tomorrow someone says that from now on we will just build using wood and timber, that is a kind of regenerative material, we will not have raw materials enough. That's the first aspect. And then there are infrastructure buildings and elements that cannot be built in that. So we also need to be kind of conscious that there are some limitations, but I believe, and as you said, that there's much more that can be done. And again, not only by a special group of people, I would say, like the ones that I'm quite lucky to work, but it's lots of opportunities to scale and really have this impact in terms of buildings, in terms of infrastructures. I mean, if we just start seeing our cities as material banks, as sources for materials, rather than just considering the use of raw materials as a baseline, that will be already like a huge shift. Of course, this takes time and takes effort, collaboration, but it's also quite interesting and challenging, I think, all of us trying to work on this.
Thank you. So as we haven't received any questions yet, I would ask a final question to you, Ana. Imagine, which I'm not, but imagine I'm the owner or the CEO of an organization in the built environment sector. And I've made this personal transformation and said, okay, I want to start the sustainability journey, becoming sustainable and circular. What advice would you give me?
Well, I will be a bit repetitive from part of my content from the Cambridge course, but I always keep saying it is important to set up a clear roadmap. And this means not setting up targets. This means evaluate and do a bit of reflection on where and why and what you want to be. I think as an organization, as an individual, as professional, and from that start backwards. So we want to get there. So what do we need to do? So I normally, when I work with different organizations, sometimes they have this huge target set up that no one really has an idea how to get there, and in some cases it's not even possible, because we know how the industry is struggling in the different aspects, and sometimes is really not important. I think collaboration inside the company is essentially as well. So, and if you are the CEO, and Peter, I would say you need to bring together the team to work with you, being you one of the ambassadors and the champion for these changes. Because I also see that when the kind of the demand, the challenges coming from the top tier, the C-suite, they are much more effective as well. And then finally, just focus on the small steps, like start doing a few things, start learning. I mean, there's lots and lots of learning that needs to be done. Be ready to fail. Unfortunately, not all these amazing concepts and business models are still doable. So be ready to kind of to fail, but also be bold, take the kind of the action and try to do it. So I think that's kind of the advice.
And there's a question, but I have another one. It's a finding that I'm doing since recently, as I'm diving deeper and deeper in all the SDG, ESG layers and sustainability, is that I think that CEOs only have the tip of the iceberg know-how and understanding of what it is, but they don't, because they stop at a certain level, which is, with everything they have on their plate, they hand it over. But there is so much more where, when you dive into the UN SDG goals, where you can really tie in the mission, the purpose of the company with that, and really work out something which is absolutely extraordinary. And which is a fine, before I was always thinking, okay, we have, as senior leaders, we have certain cognitive biases or blind spots, and we don't want to see it. But I think it is really about the know-how of what it can bring to you as CEO as an added value. Now, to the question of Fuang, she asks, thank you so much for sharing your working experience. Anna, could you please share if there has been any challenge with material sorting for reuse and recycle, talking from your experience working with over 300 manufacturers in Europe?
Yes, there has been a lot of challenge in terms of, I would say, recycled content. That's probably what you are asking for. I mean, the standards, the Cradle to Cradle certification standards just set up really high requirements on material health in the same way as the recycled content. So we can't really afford to have in the market a high recycled content product that is not safe for the users or is not safe for the building. So, and that has been one of the main challenges faced by this introduction of recycled content, because many companies, unfortunately, they don't really control the source of this recycled content. And then, of course, it needs to go through different testing protocols and so on. And that has been one of the major challenges. In the built environment, I don't see, there's some product categories really, really struggling with these requirements. But if you think about like textiles or even like other sources, packaging, that of course has some impact in the built environment. We see like recycled content being the source being completely untrackable as well sometimes. So
Yes.
it's really one of the challenges. Thank you very much for bringing that to the conversation. It indeed has been a hot spot.
But I think through legislation and also with the work that you're doing, as well as so many others, about innovation, rethinking, I mean, the design of products, and what we can see also in the fashion industry, in the packaging industry, and also in the very traditional industries, there will be such a move that we will move anyway. I mean, it is like that. I mean, and now the time is over, unfortunately. I mean, it has been a pleasure. And also thank you to all our peers of the Cambridge Judge Business School fellows who were there. And I mean, we'll stay in touch anyway. And to the audience, if you have some further questions, please address them in the LinkedIn comments, and we'll make sure to have them answered for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
So I'm ending the broadcast.